Hi. Oh, is it working? Is it any better, everyone? Oh my god, I'm so sorry if it's still a blur. I'm completely clueless about what to do. Let's carry on. Let's see, it might get better in a little while. Yeah, let me just go over the pens again. Okay, so these are the different types of pens that I use, and I buy um, the number 2 or the number 3 of different pens to test which one works best for me. Number 2 or number 3 are the thinner pens, and it's also good to have a number 6 and then a nice fat pen. So these two are good enough. Oh gosh, I hope the blur doesn't last. Can anyone just tell me how many people can see it properly? Because if it's a bandwidth issue at my end, then I would know that. Much better. Okay, I'm getting some people see it blurry. You can use a gel pen, a ballpoint pen, whichever you have right now. This is one of the artworks that you can use. A pencil, you can use even ink and whatever. Okay, so I'm really sorry for those whom the reception is really blurred, but I will be posting this on stories, so hopefully you'll see it better on that. Okay, cool. Right, so as we get started, I just wanted to demystify a little bit about doodle art. There is one kind of art where you do a whole lot of textures, and I tried doing that for this session, and I realized that that was just not me. This is doodle art as well, where you break up spaces and you fill them up with different kinds of textures. But somehow it never appealed to me. Yes, you can use a fountain pen. So I prefer something that has a little more form. So this was one book that I printed about 8 or 10 years ago. This was also printed on recycled Tetra Pak paper, so paper made from when the package is broken up, and the paper is then recycled and made into usable, writable, printable paper. And I made a whole lot of Marathi nursery rhymes like that, where I drew an illustration with form, but I filled up the form with texture. This was something that I preferred to do rather than just have loose textures all over. Here's another one. So those of you who are joining in today, just any pen and paper is good. So this poem is Chandoba Chandoba. This was Sang Sang Bholanath. Then this was Chocolate Sa Bangla. Yeah, it's a good question. What is doodle art and why it's called that? I'm just going to demystify some of that as we start sketching, but I just want to show you a certain variety of textures and forms that can be used to make what's called doodle art. This is one of my most favorite. It turned out really beautiful. It's got a lot of texture in it, yet what also draws the attention is how the lines work with all the textures, and they all tell a story. This is Juk 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 Agin Gadi. So I like to play with forms like that. Billowing clouds, or this is the smoke from the engine. So what I'm going to do today with you guys is try and work with a simple form and then fill it up with detailing. Yes, this book was published several years ago, and then the company that made the paper, it stopped making the paper again. But I intend to make this again with handmade paper, which a friend of mine makes. There's one friend in Goa, one friend in Pune. They make that. So now this is one version, and this is again a very personal preference. I prefer to have more defined forms rather than just vacuous design. So there are some images. I have tons of doodle art, which I hate to call doodle art, but I prefer to do something like that which has form. I think one of the biggest challenges was when I made a rainbow and I wanted to show it as a rainbow, but when you put it in a certain context, you know that this is nothing other than a rainbow. So that's what I like to playing on perception. So let's begin. I'm going to show you how to make two things. One is of course the artwork, but I'm also going to show you how to make this texture bank for yourself. So as we fill in our textures, as we make our artwork, we are also going to start making a little booklet onto which we can create our textures. So what I need you to do is get a full sheet of paper, and we'd made this booklet sometime back, but for those of you who are new, I'm going to show it to you one more time. It's a simple foldable book. Let me just give myself more space. Yeah, okay, it's a lot better. Right, so this is my paper. I'm using the whole A4 sheet, and I'm going to fold it in half. This is the texture bank we're making. Fold it in half along the length of the paper, and then fold it again in half along the width or along the length this time. I'm never sure. Just make sure that the edges align properly. Okay, so this is how we have folded, and now I want you to also fold from either side. So you fold back to the center. I will show you this fold a couple of times, so those of you who might need some time to follow the instructions, you can just watch this first, and then I'll show it to you one more time. Okay, so this is how we folded it. Just fold it in half this way, then fold it in half this way. Okay, and then turn it around and fold again in half. So don't worry too much about the turning this way or that. You can fold this first and then fold it inward again if you want to. Even that's perfectly fine. So don't worry about that too much. Okay, now what I want you to do, and this is crucial, is fold it back on half. And no, those who are using a book, please use a book separately. You don't need to make this if you don't have spare paper. This is just for I make this booklet because it's a little handy. I can carry it, and as I think of textures, I can note them down. Okay, so you have a free end and you have a folded end. I want you to cut along the folded end towards this intersection of the fold. For those who have a book, you can just make different squares of 1 or 2 inches by 1 or 2 inches and fill those squares with texture. Even that works. Okay, this is how I folded. On the folded side, I have cut it. And now these two sides I'm going to press to each other so the fold opens up. And I'm just going to press this inward and fold it again. This is how my book is ready. And I can have about 3 pages, a cover and a back. I'm going to show you one more time. You folded it along the center this way, then turn it around, fold the 2 sides towards the center, and then also the center this way, right? So we've got these 8 folds. Then along the folded edge we need to cut it. This side is not cut, the free side is not cut. And now this is the crucial part where you could probably get a little confused. I'm gonna just create this kind of mountain on your table and pull the sides together towards each other, and this mouth opens up, and then you bring all the centers together. Cool. So let's begin with this, and some of the extra paper. Now we will make the artwork on these sheets of paper. So the focus over here is simplifying a form and filling that up with different kinds of textures. For those who've not got this booklet, I'll try and show you a little later, because I know this gets a little confusing. So right now what you can do is just on a sheet of paper, because the booklet is not very vital. You can just make some boxes in pencil, and as we start discovering textures, you can start filling out the textures, because that is more important. And I will show this to you one more time, because I've already shown it twice, and we'll just keep spending more time in making the booklet. So if you don't mind, I'll show it again halfway in or towards the end, so then at least you can make that, because that's not very vital right now. Okay, so pulling my camera slightly closer. Sorry about the wobble. Today I'm just using printer paper because I want to conserve my drawing paper. We are not going to do any painting today. Okay, so what I want you to do is, for those of you who had attended the first coffee painting session, we had made houses. I'm going to go over the same form one more time. I'm using a 0.6 pen. And what I'm going to do is just draw a bunch of houses. Maybe I can draw it this way, so it just looks like houses that are stacked one on top of the other. So start from the bottom and just draw a shape like that. I'll just hold it closer so that you can see how it looks. This is an A5 size booklet. Okay, start with a shape like this. and then draw 2 parallel lines, or actually 3 parallel lines at any angle, and then draw a parallel line to the first side. So you create a very simplistic shape of a house, which is like the romantic version of a house. None of us might have ever lived in a house like that. And this is the form that we repeat one way or another, and we just change these dimensions. So what we do is first make all these shapes in the center, and you can just touch them to the previous shape. And again make lines that are parallel. Now when we draw parallel lines for dimension, we are doing something called isometric drawings, and those who are students of architecture might know how that works. When we draw things in perspective, we change these angles, they don't go parallel. But this is one way where we can play with perception. So even if we are drawing these straight lines, they would still look like little houses. Okay, simple enough. Let's just build these up all the way to the top. So now from behind, you can draw the same kind of shape. Obviously, we may or may not have a base here. You can also draw horizontal lines if you want to. And let the line go wherever it goes. Don't try to control this drawing. Once you get a nice free form, it's great fun to see how your eye can make sense of what you're drawing, even if you're drawing very mechanically. Now just the fact that I'm stacking these shapes one on top of the other is already creating the idea of dimension and space. And here if I extend the line behind this, it starts looking like it's just overlapping, but it's not actually. I'm just stopping the line at a particular point. Now I'll explain to you the purpose of this illustration. What we're going to do is now fill in textures in the roofs. Now as we are filling textures in the roof, we are also going to fill out the textures in our texture bank. So sometimes you can test the texture in your texture bank, and sometimes you can make a texture that looks great here and then bank it. Okay, let me just leave this over here for people who want a little more time, so that everybody is on the same page. And in the meantime, let me just give you a little bit of interesting history about the word doodle. I came across this word when I was naming my company because I wanted to be sure what it meant. And of course, for me, when I named the company Doodle Factory, it was just because I'm constantly drawing, I'm constantly sketching. But I explored the idea of calling it Sketch Factory, and even sometimes even comedies are called sketches, so that was getting a little confusing, so I didn't like the name too much. But then I came across a fact that painters in the past, like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, these guys would make sketches or drawings of their paintings on really large sheets of paper. And by really large, I mean entire wall sizes. Those used to be called doodles. And also cartoons. It's very funny. Imagine Leonardo da Vinci just walking into his studio and saying, "Where's my cartoon?" Or "Where's my doodle?" Imagine that. But of course, there was some doodles that Leonardo da Vinci made in his diaries, which were very famous, which were also called doodles. But these are all very informal terms. Otherwise, doodle meant just absent-mindedly drawing something, and it also meant a simpleton, just who's that doodle over there. So it's been used in many different ways in the past. So the most relevant for me was drawing something almost subconsciously all the time. I felt like the worst torture for me would be to leave me without a drawing aid. So that's where I use the word doodle from. But nowadays it has become a very popular art form, and I think the reason for that is because it is one of the easiest to pick up. And also there's a very interesting thing that happens if you doodle, because you have repetitive textures and small areas to fill up. You can actually develop a very good drawing hand if you doodle, if you make a whole lot of textures. So this is going to be my basic form as of now, and I'm going to make some textures in this. So usually when I'm making textures, I try to limit myself, and I say, okay, what can I do with just dots? And I will start making dots of one size and say, okay, if I place the dots at a particular distance and then one below the other, how does that look? And then after that, what if I change the position and place them below but between the previous dots? And what if I change the size of the dot? What if I intersperse big dots and small dots? So I try to identify a characteristic of the element that is going to fill up the space. So one is size, what can we play with? The second is the distance of the texture, so distance between each element, and repetition. So is it repeated right below, or is it repeated at half distance below, so on and so forth. Yeah, I'll explain about what Zentangles are also. Now here, if you notice, this is all about lines of a particular length. The variables are length, direction, placement. So some are placed between the vertical lines, some are placed at the ends of vertical lines, and each of them becomes a different texture. And I still have space, so if I think of something other than this, I will fill it up. So if we were to count this, we have texture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just by changing the thickness of the line as well, you can change how the texture looks. This is also very significant, so it's not the same. Then making plus signs. Even changing the distance between the lines makes a difference. The length of the line makes a difference. So as you can see, if you can see one from the other, then that is a different texture. Here we have triangles, and here we have circles, but unfilled circles. Here was a texture bank I'm building with scallops, and here are just vertical lines onto which I'm going to fill different kinds of textures. So I'm going to do a little bit of the vertical line textures on these. Right, so I'm going to first make vertical lines like this. Now to fill an R bank, to fill this texture in our bank, I can make small boxes like this and fill out the texture in this as I go along. And I can also name these textures because I love naming things. Okay, these are the houses. So I want the roofs of the houses to resemble something like roofs. And I have seen shale roofs and tile roofs and thatch roofs. So I'm going to do a variety of textures that will resemble actual roofs. Now here's another herringbone like we made yesterday. And this works well. This gives us an impression. It's a very lovely texture to fill up. So for those of you who wanted to know about Zentangles is a copyrighted term. There is a company in the US which has used the idea of working on textural art for the sake of meditation. And they have very specific rules about how you have to conduct a session on Zentangles, and each of their textures has a particular name. So it's good if you are interested in Zentangles. It's a good idea to check if the person who is conducting that session is certified as a Zentangle teacher, because you have to have certification from the organization in the US to conduct such workshops. Now, if you notice that this kind of control on the line to make them straight, to get the distances equal, that is what we are practicing with doodles. So if you come across what I personally don't like is when people do this and they'll fill it up, and this is just filling up of space, and to my mind this looks like nothing or something like that. They'll make all these spiral designs and they'll work really hard and fill up a whole lot of space, but everything looks like that. It's just very, very messy. Not my thing at all. I prefer to work in a very disciplined manner because that actually helps you develop great control over your hand. The difference between Zentangles and doodles is a matter of technicality. How can I put this? They are essentially just doodle textures, but they have been given particular names and a purpose for filling out during a session of Zentangles. So okay, here let me just explain this. I have just made circles and I'm filling out the spaces between the circles. So this is how it's going to look. I'm using the lines as rails onto which I'm going to place these circles and fill out spaces in between. There. You might find exactly the same kind of textures in a Zentangle tile, but there is a whole lot of a meditative practice that goes behind it. So I wouldn't use the term loosely, and I was fortunate enough to have a student who is a teacher of Zentangles, and she said that it's very beautiful how they have constructed that whole discipline. So if you want to just sit on paper and just doodle, that's perfectly fine, but you can also learn something more from the actual craft. Okay, so this is one. Then the other, we can make something like this scallop shape, And I like to finish my designs like so, even if it is in incomplete pattern, that still looks better than changing the size of this tile and making one tile fat and one tile thin. That I don't personally like that. Yes, I'm filling the gaps in between the circles. Now scallops are very versatile. You can do a whole lot of things with scallops. There was someone who had asked the question whether we were doing food illustration today. No, I had put up that picture for the benefit of some people who'd asked to see how the food illustration images turned out. So I apologize if there was some confusion. I was aware that that might happen. Okay. For those of you whom the session is pausing, I was told that there is a chance that the 5 o'clock time slot is apparently very popular and a lot of people are online. So I'm really sorry about that. I have no idea how I can fix that. But I do upload these videos on Instagram for 24 hours. So if you feel you want to come back, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, it's so frustrating not to be able to fix that problem. Right, so we can keep filling these textures, but I'm going to ask you to avoid filling anywhere other than the roofs. Just control. Then the other textures that we can do. Oh my god, it's pausing for everyone. Paused and blur. Can anyone tell me if it is okay with them? Is the video okay? No, okay, pausing. Okay, for some it's gotten better. Oh, blur. Oh dear. Oh. Okay, it's good for some people and it's blurred for some people. Okay, better. Okay. All right, let's just go on. Now the next texture that I can explore with you is make these zigzag shapes. These can also be used very versatilely. Oh god, what is that word? These textures also have a lot of versatility. This texture is also very versatile. So I'm just making a zigzag, but I'm matching the zigs to the zags. Now some of you might be tempted to just draw verticals and then draw lines this way and that way so that it looks like this texture, but trust me, it does not work unless you make it like so. And then you can create texture like this. You can, within those triangles that you created, you can create more and more textures. You can alternate, you can color them in. Okay. This is how it can work. Now the same texture, I can make it slightly bigger so I have more options of texturing it. Again, I'm doing this zigzag. And I'm going to change pens now. This is the 0.6 art line pen, but I'm going to change pens and use the Faber-Castell 0.2. And here I'm going to make might have to hold this pen upright, so I just have to make the texture and show it to you. Oh, it's giving up on me. So I have made textures like this. On one side of the triangle I just went in one direction, and the other side I went in the other direction. Makes a very beautiful texture. I'm leaving many of them half done because I'll click a picture of construction of these textures and then I'll fill them up and put them up later. But I want to show you a whole lot of textures and how to fill them up. So this is one. Then we can always make the spirals. I just absolutely love spirals. Now when you're making spirals, go very carefully so that you want the negative space to be balanced. As you go inward, make it like a parallel line that goes in. So take your time. If you can see the difference between a hurriedly made spiral and a calmly made spiral, I think you can tell the difference, which texture might look good. And keep changing the direction of the spiral to keep the texture interesting. In this kind of textural art, much of the beauty comes from the negative space, not only what you draw. What you draw looks pretty because the space around it supports its existence. So both the negative and the positive look very harmonious. That's what makes the design really stand out. And I finish off with these curly twirly shapes so that all the space fills up. Alright, already it started looking really nice. Then with scallops there's another shape you can make, which is, now this is like longer scallops, but you can make really flat scallops as well. And all these now are in a thinner pen, so if you've got a variety of thicknesses, it can look really interesting. Which artist inspired me? That's a beautiful question. I came to this kind of art, I think all on my own, but there is an artist called MC Escher. He's a Dutch artist, and he did a lot of texture work, not this kind of texture, but a lot of very, very beautiful texture. He was there's a fantastic museum at The Hague as well, so anybody close to The Hague wants to visit, you must see. That's MC Escher. Okay, I'm going to show you quick textures now so that I can move to other forms. I will be saving this. If God willing, my machine will also listen to what I'm telling it to do. So currently all my technology is Bhagwan Bharose, but at least I will be putting this up online on Instagram at least for 24 hours. Okay, this is another one. And you can go on filling this deeper and deeper and deeper if you want to, or you can also do other textures. Like I have one graphic, I think it is up on my Instagram feed, where I have made 100 different fish with scallops, and each of them has a different filling in the scallops. So I can fill the same way, but I can color it up, or I can also do something like this. I can draw some lines inside that, radiating from the previous scallop row. Who else I have tons of famous artists, favorite artists, and I can go on and on which artist to follow. Let me think which artist do I like who is very relevant to this also. So yeah, so this is one, and what else can we do? We can okay, how did I get this idea? What idea for the textures? I guess I was just doodling, and that's something just came to me. I simplified the form. Let me try and look for that graphic. It was actually a cow that came to me. Yeah, William Morris, but William Morris is not an artist. William Morris was a designer. So yeah, Natasha, slight difference there. But William Morris was fantastic. He's he deserves to be over here. So anyone who is in London, there's a beautiful museum just outside of London. William Morris. Amazing designer. And why he is a good artist is because he created art forms. He created motifs of florals, which I absolutely love. So okay, so in honor of William Morris, let's make a floral today. Should we make something floral? My best go-to, where we can fill in with a whole lot of textures, and that looks nice as well. So let's start off with just a shape like this, from where we are going to draw some petals, and let's draw really long petals like that. So just wavy lines that become a little fat as you go towards the center. And when they're outside, don't taper them, just make a round-ish edge. And then from here, we will draw a few forms like that maybe intertwine. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, so let's say I am visualizing as we go along. Oh great, I got some balance there. And then from the other side also you can have these petal shapes. Continue. So we've got these 6 petals. I'll just wait a second. Some people's videos have paused. Now, since I was going to show you how to work with the ink pen, excuse me. Let's hope everyone's videos turn okay, then I can show this to you. Now, when we are doing artwork like this and you're running out of pens, and I hate the fact that they're all made in plastic and are all not refillable, sometimes I'll just pull out my nibs and ink and work with that. Now this is a drawing nib. It's called Zebra G. And this has the unique ability of giving me a thick line if I press it slightly. But I'm not going to press it. I'm just going to use it without pressing. And I'm going to draw these lines going outward. Now even something like that, if you do a lot of, your hand starts becoming so much better control. So while I'm generally miffed with people's doodle art or doodling as they call it, because it's not helping them develop their skill. And I feel that there's so much you can do with every tool, including doodles. So I think it's important to review what you do at every point. So if you've made some illustrations or doodle art, and just look at it and see how you can make it flawless. Yeah, I'll wait now because I think a lot of people have a problem. Yeah, the houses are here, and I'm going to be completing these houses with more and more textures. But I want to show you how you can also do textures in something like this. You can even fill these with texture. Same kind of textures that we made on the houses. Yeah, see this? So you don't always have to do something very bland and blank. Oh damn, I'm so sorry about this. It's not working for people today. This is just so sad. Hopefully the video which I upload will not be blurred. Yeah, it's just probably a lot of internet thing happening. Too much activity. What's the day today? Today's Thursday. But maybe everybody is online now and doing so much stuff online, and I think this is a very popular time slot. So this is how you can fill in. The advantage of working with something like this is you can fill up spaces. Yeah, I'll be saving the video. Hopefully it'll save. And you can also then freely fill in spaces here. I find it very, very difficult to use all that ink from my fancy pens to fill in spaces. So I will use my calligraphy ink, which is just a Sumi ink or drawing ink, and fill up these spaces. So if I want to make any dark spaces, I will not fill that up with pen. I will use ink. Snowman, I think, is a good pen, yeah. But I'm sure I've had it. I think I've had all sorts of pens by now. What you need to check is if the line is consistent throughout, so it does not become too fat or too thin suddenly. The ink does not stop suddenly. That's what makes a pen of good quality. There you go. See? It looks so beautiful. So I use a floral inspiration like this to create a basic form, and then I will fill it up with texture. And now I'll show you the glass pen. These pens are also now available online. It's a specially fluted pen. It's about this big. The whole thing is made out of glass, and it's got this this texture at its tip, which helps to hold the ink. And then as I use it, it just allows ink to flow in a very regular speed down to its tip. So let's try this. I'm going to try on my rough sheet first, of course. Yeah, sometimes it flows, sometimes it doesn't. Camera shy. So let's do a texture here. The advantage of making an artwork like that is you can very easily create forms from something that's familiar, rather than sitting and thinking, okay, what kind of form am I going to, how am I going to fill it up? See this? This texture was made with the glass pen. And you can continue filling this as much as you want to. Cool. So we have these two beautiful drawings, and what else were we gonna do? Yeah, now we can fill up more in the texture bank. Let's title the texture bank. The glass pen is not a brand. I just bought it online on Amazon, so you can just buy any one that you like. Okay, for the titling of this book, let us make some. You can make it as simple as this, but you can also make it interesting, make it full of texture if you want to. So I will write the word bank really large, maybe with a fat pen first. Where is my... my pens are missing. There it is. Okay, so let's make the word bank really big. And you can fill up textures in this as well if you want to, or we can I'll just show you how to make a banner. Just make a wavy line like that with two ends sticking out. Then from either side of the fold you will drop a line and then join it like so. And now that we have this all cut out, we can also do we can also make a frame around this and fill in all the textures that we are going to bank in this space. So you can make this into a negative design. So you can do something like this. It's always nice to try something new and do something unpredictable. Oh my god, today's video is just going to be so sad. Oh. Yeah, I'm going to, this session is going to stop now. So give me 5 minutes and I'll come back again and we'll finish this. I'll give you another half an hour. Let's see how, if things change. At least 20 minutes. So again, thank you for joining me, for those who might want to carry on with their lives. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to restart and come back so that we can continue this session hopefully unpaused.